Minister, there's up to 40,000 people around the country affected by epilepsy each day. And if we leave aside briefly the medical impacts on it, one of the restrictions on them is that they're not allowed to drive. Their licence is restricted. And as you can imagine, that's a huge impediment on people in ordinary everyday life, whether it's going to or from work, going about social life and so many more other ways. Is there a way of giving them access to the free travel pass while they're restricted from driving?
Deputy, for raising this issue. The free travel scheme provides free travel on the main public and private transport services for those eligible under the scheme. There are currently approximately 1,012,000 customers with direct eligibility. The estimated expenditure on free travel in 2021 is 95 million. And it's really important to note that, in general, access to free travel pass for those aged under 66 is linked to a person being in receipt of a certain primary social protection payment, such as disability allowance, invalidity pension, carers allowance, blind pension and partial capacity benefit. Importantly, as many illnesses or physical conditions have an impact across a spectrum from mild to severe, entitlement to these schemes is not provided on the basis of a simple diagnosis, but on the basis of the impact of that diagnosis on the individual concerned. In this way, resources can be targeted to people with most need. Therefore, while a diagnosis of a particular medical condition will be required to establish if a person may be eligible for certain social welfare schemes, evidence of impact is also required before entitlement to the scheme or the related free travel scheme is established. The sole exception to this general approach is in respect of people who are blind. My department may award a travel supplement under the Supplementary Welfare Allowance Scheme where the circumstances of the particular case so warrant. The supplement is intended to assist with ongoing or recurring travel costs that cannot be met from the client's own resources and are deemed to be necessary. And I hope this brings some clarity for the Deputy.
And thank you for the overview on the scheme. Minister, the costs associated with medication and so on are acknowledged by the state with the long-term illness, the Yellow Book. This is another big restriction on people, and it's not at all being acknowledged. No, I appreciate, yes, there is the point on the supplementary case-by-case basis, but we know that people who have epilepsy are put off the road. And look, they're restricted from work. The state should be acknowledging that and looking towards giving them mobility and access. Some people will already have maybe a disability payment and have access to it that way, but people who are maintaining their employment and who are already struggling because they're having to change around their work, trying to get on public transport and so on. There should be a way on that. And is there any way of reviewing it, or is there any review underway that it could be included?
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy. Well, just can I say to you, Deputy, I do appreciate the point that you are making. I have a friend with epilepsy myself. They're off the road at the minute, and as you said, if someone loses their licence due to a seizure caused by epilepsy, it really is awful for them, and I do understand that. The problem I have, and that the officials in the department have clearly pointed out to me, is that the free travel pass is very much based on the social welfare payment that you are in receipt of. It's not based on your condition or your illness. And as you know, the social welfare system is based on income and contributions. The change that Epilepsy Ireland are proposing would move the scheme away from being in receipt of a qualifying payment to it being based on your condition regardless of your income. And that would be a fundamental change to how the scheme is run. And I imagine it would give rise to calls then from other groups.
Thank you,
so,
Minister.
like everything, I suppose if it was easy, it would have been done long ago.
Margaret, I suppose, firstly, to return to my original question, is there some review opportunity coming forward that this can be teased out further, because there is a very real need in it? Don't worry, Minister, about setting a precedent. That's already done with the Yellow Book, the long-term illness. People who are on people who have epilepsy are already having their condition acknowledged, irrespective of their income, purely on the basis of the condition, and they're getting a benefit there. So, look, a precedent already set there. There's already a mix of ways where people who are in employment have social welfare payments, whether they're lone parents or working family allowance or even on pension. So there's already a mix and match in there. And some people who have epilepsy are on the disability payment and have access on it. So there's really a checkerboard of situations there. And you're looking at a smaller number of people who are now remaining excluded because they're in employment and they don't have a social welfare payment. So is there an opportunity of a review? Have you looked at the numbers of people who are involved, especially when you see the large numbers of people who are already on the travel pass? You're only looking at a very small number of an additional cost.
Deputy Carroll MacNeill.
The number is 5,575. It's not all 40,000 people with epilepsy. The impact of the diagnosis is that the state says you can't drive for a year. If there's a breakthrough seizure, you can't drive for a year. There are lots of people who have controlled epilepsy and are on the long-term illness scheme from the state already. But those who are uncontrolled, about 30% of people with epilepsy, will never drive. Many of them are on the disability, on other schemes, but many are not, and they continue to work. But they need access to this scheme. There's only 5,000 of them. The impact, as you said in your response, Minister, it's on the impact of diagnosis. The impact of diagnosis, if you have epilepsy, is that you cannot drive because the state tells you so. There is an exemption, as you said, in relation to blind people, and the reason for that is obvious, to provide free travel scheme. Epilepsy is very similar, and there is an argument for, in particular, providing provision, or at least in a formalised way, that decouples the free pass from the other schemes, which many people with epilepsy who are working and paying tax in the state don't want to be on, don't need to be on, but need additional support, maybe for a year, maybe for two, with free travel. And I would urge your officials to think about it again.
Thank you, Minister, to conclude.
Thank you, Deputies. And I fully appreciate what you're saying, and you certainly, you make a good case, and I do understand it. I intend to meet with Epilepsy Ireland to discuss their proposal in detail, because a lot of what you're saying is something they did write to me about it. I'm not going to make any promises, because it would be wrong of me to do that, but I will meet them. I'm going to hear what they have to say, and I do think that we need to discuss this with Minister Ryan and the Department of Transport and get their views on the matter. And I'm also going to ask my officials to examine it. But I think it's something that you make the case. There's only a small number of people, but I have to go back to you and say that the social welfare scheme is based on income, which is means tested, or contributions. That's the two prongs with which the social welfare scheme works. What you're talking about is going outside that and looking at a medical condition. Now, I am happy to look at it because, as I said, you make the case, and I want to thank you for raising it as well. So I will talk to Epilepsy Ireland.